Hey, good afternoon, Vicky. How are you doing?
Hey, Magic, I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful. It's Monday. I was at an event last week and flew back home
Okay.
on Saturday, and I'm still ready. The
What is the
caffeine,
event? What is the event? Did you go to anything interesting? Did I miss anything interesting?
it was a really great event. It was ScaleCon 2025. It was put on by Tech Tribe and MSP Camp. This was their second year of this event. So as a vendor coming in, you're not really sure what it's going to be like, but it was a nice intimate setting. It was just a few hundred MSPs, and it was really great. I feel like sometimes being able to go to those smaller events is nice because then you can have more in-depth conversations instead of kind of like these drive-by conversations that tend to happen sometimes at the bigger shows.
Tech
And
Tribe sounds like a peer group.
It is. It is a peer group. They are founded out of Australia. It was really great to see Nigel Moore. He's the founder for Tech Tribe up there. He actually brought his daughter, who is 10, who just turned 10, and she was an MC at the event in front of these hundreds of MSPs. I was so impressed by this little lady. I mean, 10 years up, 10 years old up on a stage with all of these industry veterans, and I can tell you that I would not have the nerve to do that when I was 10 years old. So it was really neat to see that, and it was great to see a lot of the MSPs who actually flew over from New Zealand and Australia as well as the US. So
I was a musician, so I finished a musical school. So when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, I had to go on stage and perform and play music. So I feel for her, like being 10 years old and going on stage. It's a bit of a challenge, but you get used to it, like to any challenge, I guess.
yeah.
Vicky, you just joined Evergreen, which some of my listeners and subscribers might remember because Sydney did show up in one of the discussions here. Evergreen, but please remind for those who haven't heard about Evergreen, what does Evergreen do and what's your new role?
Yes, and first of all, I'm so glad that you had Sydney Hockett on your show because she has been with Evergreen for a long time and is amazing contributor to our organization. Evergreen is a holding company that buys MSPs and holds them forever in a decentralized way that allows those business owners to exit and preserve their legacy however they would like, and in a way that helps to keep their employees and their solution stacks and their customers happy. And it's a really great model because it again, there's so many different paths to exit. I know we're going to be talking about this here in a little while, but it's really great to be able to have this model down and really know what we're doing. We have a little over 100 MSPs that are now within the our holding company Evergreen, which is called Lyra.
Mhm.
And but again, all of these MSPs are preserving their names, their brands. They're preserving those local economies and those jobs and those local communities. And the benefit to that MSP, once they become part of our family, is that they can then leverage a lot of the different opportunities that Lyra has as a larger holding company.
I
So
know. I,
whether,
I I was very
yeah,
impressed with this whole business model, with this whole concept, because unlike either private equities, Evergreen is investing into MSP, allowing the owner, the founder, to stay on board and run the company as long as they want to. And then there is this kind of this sister company, Lyra, that
mm-hmm,
provides the support for the MSPs in the space of logistics or vendor management or marketing or sales organization, hiring, HR. So there's a lot of different things that the MSP can lean on. So they
yeah.
can basically focus on what they know best, which is using technology to support their customers.
Yeah, and we have a founders club at Evergreen, and so I've now that I've been in the seat for about 4 weeks, I've got the chance to meet some of our founders for our quarterly founders club get together, and not all of these founders are in the business anymore. Some of them have exited, and they've retired, or they're teaching. Maybe their dream job was to go back and teach at a university, or to buy an airplane. I mean, it's really interesting to see some of the journeys that these founders have gone on since exiting their business. Yeah.
It is a very important and interesting concept that I don't think many of the business owners appreciate. When typically when you start your own company, you do it because you have a passion for a certain business. Either you're really great at technology, or you're really great salesperson, or what name you. But at certain point in time, everybody will reach a point when they will have to think about the next stage in the career. Some people do it a little bit earlier, some people do it a little bit later, but there is this moment when you want to just take advantage of all the hard work that you invested in your company. And then, companies like Evergreen are extremely helpful in helping the business owners to fulfill their next dream. Yes?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I think you meet people that have been working in as a business owner, almost feeling like they're on an island for sometimes decades. And they get to a point in their life, it could be a life event, it could be just something that triggers them to say, maybe I need to hand the reins over to somebody else and find something that I can truly believe in and feel like I'm doing something new. It really, being a managed service provider, just like being a VAR or a reseller, there's a formula to how you achieve success. And I think, once you figure out how to really unlock that formula, then it becomes kind of plug and play. There's a lot of founders out there that are working maybe a few days a week in the business because they've been so good at getting their companies to the point where they can run themselves that now they're just kind of checking in a few days a week. And a lot of them this is the only thing that they've ever known. And so there's also that struggle, I feel like, that happens between, do I walk away from something that I know so well? What is my new identity when I leave? And how can I stay in the business? How can I stay connected to all of these people that I've been friends with and in peer groups with for so long? And so you see that evolution too, where there are founders that exit the business, but then they come back in some way. Maybe it's working for a vendor, right? Or spinning up a peer group, or doing something that allows them to come back in another way. So it is really interesting and very unique, depending on what that owner's interests are and what they want to accomplish next.
But this is, this is one of the challenges that I see in the reseller business, because I spoke to several owners of the resellers in Europe, and I've noticed a certain frustration, because when they were ready to kind of a step out a little bit, okay, move out of this kind of a daily heat, and they started to look for investors, they ran into a challenge of the valuation that they expected for the business was not what they were offered. And there was this kind of a hard, difficult moment. And it was typically very late in the career, so they didn't have a lot of runway to change much. But they were kind of upset that the valuation that they were offered was far below what they were expecting. And that was a hard reality, that there are certain, kind of a parts of, let's call it, I don't know, a valuation equation that they need to be aware of. And I think you know those elements extremely well, Vicky.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say there are different ways that a business can be purchased, right? There's the evergreen way, which is we're going to buy 100% of that business, and we're going to let that business keep operating with the help of our leveraging our resources. There's also a tuck-in or a roll-up strategy of buying that business and really consolidating that business into the larger master organization. There's, buying the book of business, right? But then not keeping the doors open. You're just buying the clients and then maybe saying farewell to the employees. There's so many different ways that you can exit the business. I think, and there's a lot of different players out there too, by the way, right? There's the holding company model and the preserving legacies, hold forever strategy. There's obviously private equity as well that can come in. There are other, like, maybe telco providers, or I've even heard of accounting companies that are bringing in maybe different layers of services that they can incorporate into their services stack for clients. And to your point, when it comes to that valuation and you're getting to that, what that potential exit looks like, when you're looking at project-based work versus recurring revenue is predictable, right? It's something that we know is going to be there. And so having a really strong recurring revenue model is really ideal. And that's why Evergreen plays so well in the MSP space. Because the companies that we're typically looking at, you have to be at least 50% or more in recurring revenue. Now, if
This
you're
is one of the key elements that I think people struggle with, and I need to, because they tell me, hey, look, I've been doing those projects for the last 20 years, and there's always been projects.
Mm-hmm.
This is true, but like when I've also seen the situation when there was a sudden shift in the market and the projects would not happen, and a lot of companies would go bankrupt. It
Yeah.
is once you don't have this predictability, this visibility, it's something different to have a funnel of projects versus having a book of contracts that are 3-5 years out into the future. Correct?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's like I'm almost sure it's gonna happen versus they have to be cancelled not to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say too, for a lot of the resellers out there, I'm sure that there are some that are doing this, but when you're looking at all those projects that you're working on, how can you take a look at, where those commonalities are that you may be really good at, that you could start adding incrementally those recurring services to that project-based work. So maybe dipping into like the fishing pond that you're already in and seeing where you can tack on those services is ideal, and use that as like your proof of concept to really go out there and find those net new customers, because the customers that you have are the customers that already know you well.
I think this is a part of a transformation. And I think again, like once people realize what is the difference between having very regular projects versus having a kind of a contract that is embedded into customers monthly or or quarterly cycle, budgeting cycle, it's a major difference from the valuation point of view. What are
Yeah.
the other elements, Vicky, that are impacting the value of the company, except for the recurring revenue versus the projects?
All right. Well, the second one I would say is customer concentration. So you want to make sure that your customers, that the majority of your revenue is not coming from your top 5 customers, let's say. It should not, actually, your top 5 customers should not exceed over 20%. And so I think that's another thing to consider. If you have such a high concentration, that is taking on a lot more risk if that customer decides to go away overnight. So I would say that, and this could be a little bit of a challenge, even for MSPs, especially those that have certain contracts with clients that have been with them for a really long time. It's really key to take a look at those contracts and to say, okay, like how can we maybe increase prices here, right, for maybe some of our newer customers, right, and then making sure that we're also adding services on top of and increasing prices. Because there's a whole, by the way, and I won't go into this now, maybe this is for another session together, but we do kind of do a breakdown of a P&L and show what the impact can be to your bottom line if you are deciding to hold your prices steady versus increasing your pricing and then adding services on top of it. It really has a huge impact on what your potential valuation can be as a
Okay.
business.
I'm hearing two different kind of elements that can impact the valuation.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the customer concentration, which makes total sense, and I've met many partners in my life that have started with this one large customer. This is how they started their operations. They were friends from the maybe they were friends from the school, and
Yeah.
one of them went to a very large company and the other one started his own business, and they said, well, it makes sense that you help me on the IT side to help my organization to to kind of take care of all these technology challenges. And then like they become attached and they work for many years, and it's this kind of a one customer that started the business, and the MSP or the VAR started to build other projects, other contracts around that. Well, this is great, but as you said, if this one or actually top 5 customers make more than 20% of your revenue, what if some of them decide to shift the gears or go bankrupt
Yeah.
or something happens to them? That is obviously reducing the predictability of the revenue stream and the value of the organization.
Yeah. I'll give you another
Well,
example of an MSP that
mhm.
I know really well. They've always provided great service. I mean, they've got all 5-star reviews on Google. They are just humming along. They've got this business model down right. But some of their customers did go away overnight because they were acquired by another organization. And so those are things that are beyond your control sometimes. So it's it's a roll of the dice, right? You always want to make sure that you're stepping on the right foot with any type of service or support that you're giving. But then sometimes there are those things that happen, and that's why diversification of your revenue across your customer base can really help to insulate you and support you from that potential risk.
This is a very important point, Vicky, because like once you get acquired, obviously this kind of a personal connection is evaporating, right? You're no longer with the company. You handed over the reins to somebody else,
Yeah.
maybe a completely separate entity, and this kind of a connection might no longer exist, and just never like not translating to any future revenue streams.
Yeah. Which leads into our last
Oh,
valuation.
but you also said
Oh,
one more thing which I did really like. You said
okay.
the customer concentration. Another one that I've heard is ability to raise pricing.
Mm,
I think it's extremely and many times undervalued by people. Uh, I've heard about companies that are not raising prices because they are afraid to do so. And
hmm
there were so many years they had the same contract. There is inflation, there are changes, there are costs increases and everything else, and they keep their pricing because they are too afraid to do that. I
hmm
think ability to continuously increase the pricing for the services and to be able to prove it over the certain period of time could be a valuation factor. Did I
Yeah.
understand correctly?
No, you're absolutely right. It is a valuation factor. And I think for anybody out there that is afraid to increase their prices, I mean, there's a lot of literature out there on how you can approach these types of conversations. But this is where the managed services or the value added services, right, aspect of being an MSP can come into play. If you are communicating and you're honest and consistent with your clients will appreciate that. And reaching out to them and having QBRs or having business reviews of how you can help them to grow and support their business instead of just contacting them when things are bad, then I think that also helps to show where you can add value, not just by keeping their systems up and running, but also helping to understand what their goals are and helping them to unlock those. And you need to be able to modify your technology stack, improve your technology stack and cybersecurity and AI and all these other amazing, and kind of nutty technology curves are thrown at them. Like you have to be able to stay in front of that. And that's where the education piece comes in. So for all the resellers and VARs out there, education can help to really create more awareness and more warmth in the top of the funnel activities. So that way you are able to really hopefully nail that managed service contract in the future.
At HP, I used to run the global pricing organization. So we've been doing a lot of studies on how to, kind of manage the pricing. And there were certain moments when we would actually increase the prices just without any hesitation. Typically, whenever there was a change in exchange rates, okay, typically that would immediately impact our pricing. But it was also based on analytics, and we've done a lot of analysis of what are the price ranges, and we actually built into the analytics engine that was providing the pricing information to the salespeople a certain factor that was continuously pushing the prices or trying to push the prices a little bit up, just a little bit. And many times 0.5% increase means a massive boost to your EBITDA. Believe it or not, 0.5%, 1% price increase can significantly increase your pricing. Consider that, Vicky, if a margin is a 10% or 20%, 2% increase, it's an extra 10% of margin. I don't think people realize that how powerful lever pricing is in terms of being able to increase the valuation, the EBITDA, and then increase the valuation.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You said that there is another kind of a element of the valuation equation. What was the last one? Or is it the last one?
I think this is one that you and I talked about this earlier. I feel like this is something that VARs are probably really great at already, but the growth engine, sales, the way that you make a business sustainable and you have a repeatable growth engine, you gotta have a great sales strategy in place that's not solely dependent on the owner of the business. Because we do see that too sometimes in the managed service space, where the owner has become the salesperson that is closing all the deals. But remember, the owner has to exit at some point, right? So you need to have, again, a sustainable engine that is running when you are not there in the business. And I would say that from a placement perspective, that's where we do see a lot of placements that happen and that we help to support MSPs with, is a sales leader within that organization. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I've seen several situations. Like when the owner was in charge of, I don't know, 70-80% of a business. There are companies like that, and it's like once you exit, there is. I mean, it's not sustainable. Okay. And I think one of the things that I've observed, Vicky, and I'm wondering what your reaction to this will be. I think in the managed services, it's a little bit easier to manage the situation, because in the managed services, when you have a 3-year contract that has been signed, and the best salesperson in the company, the owner, exits the organization, there's still the 3 years of the contract to make a transition. While in the reseller business, the exit of the owner means he won't bring any new projects.
Yeah, that's a good perspective on it, where it's so essentially if the owner exits the business, then there's no net new business, no net new project-based work, versus you still have you have a lifeline. You've got your recurring revenue streams that are happening because you have all these contracts that you're kind of continually on. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I know that even though these clients are locked into contracts, right? Sometimes once the sale happens, there always is some concern about, what's going to happen, what's going to change once my, this MSP that's providing all these IT services to my company, when that owner goes away. And so I think having a strong communication plan too of how to set the expectations with your clients when it happens is really important. So that way they know exactly, how to continue to stay in touch with you and make sure that Everything that we're doing is status quo right now. That's also important. And I would say sorry, I was gonna go into like the sales and growth engine motions, like new customer acquisition is where companies need to work most. And I think that, I don't know if it's the same for the reseller space. Do you feel like new customer acquisition, you just mentioned that if the owner goes away, the new customer acquisition isn't happening anymore.
Even existing customer, the additional projects, okay? Because again, when I look at the typical reseller business, even if you have the relationship, every project is a new project. And again, you might have a funnel of projects that is like maybe 2-3 years out. If this relationship is gone, the funnel might still be there, but it might go to another partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the MSP world, that's what I'm hearing from the MSPs. If you have not the funnel, but the recurring revenue, the contracts, the 3-year contracts, even if the owner goes away, the contract stays, and you need to do something really bad for the customer to just say like, okay, I'm going to cancel the contract. So you have this kind of a time to build your relationship with the customer, in kind of replacing the relationship that the owner had. And obviously, it's much better to have the owner support, which is typically the case when you are when he's doing a friendly exit, correct?
Yeah, and but I would say that even for any MSP out there, new customer acquisition can be a challenge sometimes, and so there are strategies that and ScaleCon, for example, right? Conferences and peer groups that can help with those selling those selling best practices. But I think one of the things that I've seen that's been very successful for some MSPs is they're actually hosting their own events and educating their end clients on how they're helping them with their cybersecurity and AI needs. And this could be considered a sales tactic or a sales strategy, is that if you're putting your people, even your non-sales people, in front of your clients to educate them either at events or maybe hosting them at your office or doing something with the Chamber of Commerce that you belong to or should belong to, having your engineers and your support people that are working the help desk get into that room. I mean, everybody's a salesperson within your organization, right? And I think if you can also make sure that everybody understands that and is helping towards the common goal of new customer acquisition, then that is really helpful. Saying it's not my job doesn't help anybody, but if you can align and incentivize those net new customer acquisitions to your company and your employees' goals, then that helps instrumentally for sure.
Always for sure. Vicky, is there any kind of a feel for when you look at the reseller versus the MSP? I know that Evergreen is not even interested in companies that are below the 51% recurring revenue. So pure reseller would not be even considered for an acquisition, correct? For investment, correct?
Yeah, I would say that the three major areas that we invest in are IT services related, but they lean heavily on recurring revenue. So you've got the managed service revenue stream and industry. You've got IT services that work on government contracts, and then also professional service organizations that can help to stand up ERP systems or help to implement different applications across businesses. Those are the three major areas that we play in, but all of those are for the most part recurring. Yeah.
So like a pure hardware reseller is not even of an interest for your company. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that managed services is a sustainable model, and it's a very profitable model if you do it right. There are benchmarking, there are peer groups, there's all of this accountability that this industry has created to help those business owners have the best exit that they can possible for their business. And I'll leave you with this one thing. I think this is really fascinating. I've been in this industry for 10 years. I know a lot of these business owners have been in this industry for 20, 30 years, even more, before the term MSP even existed. This is the first industry that I know of that has created generational wealth from the majority of these business owners. They did not come from that, right? They've created it because they have somehow stumbled, right, and then perfected this managed service model that has allowed them to be able to create wealth not only for themselves but for their loved ones. And it's really cool to see. And it's such a niche place that I feel like everybody is just, it's a small world. It's a large world, but it's a really small community, if that makes sense. So a lot of these founders, when they leave, it's really hard for them to leave. A lot of them come back because they value what they've built, these long-lasting relationships and in this industry. So it's really a sight to see.
I need to say this is something that was very surprising for me because I always thought about the channel being extremely competitive with each other. So we always had this kind of a challenge at HP and then HPE of managing the channel conflict.
Yeah.
Like on a continuous basis, there were partners that were clashing in a deal, they were clashing in a customer, there were kind of those continuous discussions about the price protection, the deal protection, the special pricing, additional booster, all those different kind of reserving the deal, etc., etc. And when I stepped into the MSP world, what I've noticed is a way more willingness to collaborate and share and kind of and I've asked this question, to several people, especially the ones that have made the transition from the reseller to MSP. Why is there no competition here? Are people not kind of fighting each other? And then one of the MSPs said, "Look, Magic, we have realized that we have way more to gain from ways that we could support each other in improving the maturity level and the way we run business, because the stickiness that we have with the customers is way higher, and it's very difficult for anybody else to just come and undermine my position with my customer base. I have a 3 years contract. I'm kind of connected with the systems, with the QBRs, the regular processes and everything. I'm part of of my customer organizations. I'm kind of an extension of the organization. So it's much better for me to go and talk to other peers in the channel and understand how I can better serve my customer, and I can gain way more from that than a potential risk that somebody is going to come and try to undermine me with my customer base, which was a big discovery for me, frankly saying.
Yeah, it is. They're sharing the secret sauce for sure. And they're creating the accountability in some of these peer groups by sharing their financials with each other, which is shocking, right? But it allows these managed service providers to really mature their reporting models. Because I'll tell you, not every P&L is equal. There are definitely some out there that need a little work. But you can tell when you see there are MSPs out there that belong to these peer groups, that have that structure, that are leveraging these benchmarking tools to really understand their numbers and know how to really drive EBITDA. It's really easy to be able to take a look at their books and understand what we can offer as a potential valuation. So cleaning up your books is a great start. And then you mentioned before, like the incremental price increases to help with driving more EBITDA or more to the bottom line. I would also say taking a look at like your contracts. I wanted to get to some of the tactical things, if that's okay, just to make sure we're giving some people some tangible things to walk away with. But taking a look at all your vendor contracts and understanding where you can potentially negotiate, call your vendors up, hit them up. Don't take the first price that they're offering you. And I used to work for a vendor for 10 years before coming to Evergreen. Trust me, make sure that you are talking to your vendors and getting the most that you can out of those opportunities, especially at those contract renewals. Take a look at like all of your expenses and your employees' expenses. Are there things that you can cut out of the budget? Is somebody buying some random AI tool that they don't need that maybe you can leverage somewhere else? And the last thing that I'll leave is this. In the VAR world, I would love to know what your points are here in a minute on how many solutions a VAR is using or resellers using to run their business. For a managed service provider, it's increased to about 30-ish tools. So you're using those tools to run your business and also to support your clients. If you can understand what you're utilizing within what you have today, it's really easy to fall for shiny object syndrome out there, right? And to add another, like a 34th or a 35th vendor that you want to add to your payments. But take a look at where you can leverage and unlock new features that your existing vendors are coming out with. I think that's also a good tool. So again, those are other ways that you can really unlock and drive more profitability to your business.
I think this is, like on the negotiation of the special pricing or better pricing with vendors.
Yeah.
I think that this is one thing that the resellers can actually teach the MSPs, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go.
Because honestly saying, there are no better negotiators and companies that put a lot of pressure on the vendors. I've been working for a vendor for 25 years, I can tell you that. And in the pricing organization, the kind of a conversations about pricing and the cutthroat discussions about 1% more, 0.5% more discounts. I've been through that, been there, done that. Okay. So I think
you have the T-shirt. That's what they say in America. Been there, done that. I have the T-shirt.
So this is where I think MSPs should be reaching out to VARs and resellers and learning from them those strategies and tactics, around the pricing, the cost, kind of a focus on the cost and reducing the cost, because obviously in the project business, the lower cost of acquisition versus the higher price you can get from a customer, the difference is your money for the next couple of months of running your organization. So you want to make it as big as possible.
Yeah.
Vicky, one more area that I wanted to touch with you before we wrap up. Are there any kind of a ranges of valuations that there are that we could use as a kind of a
understanding, like what is the pie in the sky, like what's the opportunity for you? Well, I can tell you for Evergreen, our range for, I would say, North America and Europe and the UK and Ireland is really, I would say, 6 to 8, a 6 to 8 multiplier based on your EBITDA. And so that, again, it's always a range, but and then the better, the more going through those different value creation points of making sure if your recurring revenue percentage is higher than 50%, let's say it's 70%, 75%, then you're obviously leaning more towards a higher valuation, a higher multiplier. And the same thing for the customer concentration and sales growth engines. In Australia, I think our multipliers are a little different, and in APAC, so it's about 5 to 7, I think, is the range. But yeah, hopefully that gives people a baseline. And if you're taking a look at your EBITDA now and saying, okay, if I exit tomorrow, I'm getting this back, and then doing some pricing models of incorporating managed services, what does it look like now? And I think hopefully that answer is setting you up for success and for a better exit down the road.
This is great. And I think, like MSP, 50% or more revenue, 6 to 8 multiplier, depends on your EBITDA, depends on your customer concentration, your growth capabilities, growth engine capabilities. It's a good kind of an indication for the resellers, VARs. Go and figure out with your investor whether you can get the similar valuations, because I know that there the valuations are many times much lower than that. So
Yeah.
transforming your business from a reseller to MSP is going to accelerate your well, increase your happiness when you exit. Let me put it this
I like that. I like that. Yeah, the sky's the limit if you really focus on that. And if you're, I'm sure you probably talk about this too on your show, but if you're really curious to find out more about the space, then there's local meetups. There are places that you can go and kind of test the waters and get to know MSPs in your community a little bit more. Try to figure out how they've been able to hack that code a little bit and figure out how you can follow.
any events that you are planning to go to where people could kind of take advantage of? Any recommendations, Vicky, for the near
Well,
future?
I'm going to IT Nation Connect in November in Orlando. Are you going to be there, Magic?
I see you there. Absolutely, I wouldn't
All
miss IT
right.
Nation Connect. No, absolutely, we're gonna see each other there. So IT Nation Connect. Next week, I'm actually going to PAX 8 Beyond in Europe, in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
That's going to be another event. If you are in Europe, unfortunately, PAX 8 Beyond is already sold out. So
Um,
if you're
so
late, you're too late.
sign up for next year.
Yes, or Salt Lake City. I think PAX 8 Beyond is going to be Salt Lake City in the US in June, and then again, in Amsterdam. IT Nation Europe is around March
Yep.
timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
Next year will be an interesting one to go. There is a DatoCon next week as well in the US, which is a great event to go to. And there are several others. The best source of information is typically a little blog that Jay McBain wrote with all the 350 different events in the IT industry you can
Oh,
you
there's
can
a lot.
attend, so
Yeah.
everybody can find something for themselves, for sure. Vicky, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that. I know that you only had one day of break between the last event and this kind of a conversation, so I appreciate you took time to talk to me and to share some of your knowledge and experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Magic. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been fun.
Thank you. Bye.